today I have a new kind of content that I'm trying out. So if you would like to, please let me know if you enjoyed this or not. But basically, I have lots of modalities for coaching, and I want to showcase how I would approach one problem with multiple kind of disciplines. And so I picked this post. I deeply regret something I did, and I fear I may be truly an unkind person. So let's dive in. I love the concept of couch surfing, and there's this Facebook group made just for women with a similar concept. And so I will let you read and not torment you with my reading, but the gist of it is that this person um, decided to host someone, but then had a plane to catch on the day that at the time the guest was supposed to arrive. But now this guest was running very late. This person had a plane to catch, and what do I do? What do I do? And then this person eventually left, and then the guest came at the like near the same time, and then now both parties feel horrible. And so let's start with the first modality. I'll go in chronological order from the things like I learned. Number one is like hypnosis, right? How would hypnotists kind of deal with this? Well, hypnosis is about something that's buried in the unconscious, right? And so, what are some unconscious clues that we get from this post? Number one, um, there's a boundary. There's a underlying thought about boundary, right? And so the last time I let someone who crossed my boundary slide, he ended up killing my pet. So I'm very cautious from then whenever someone crosses my boundary. Now, this situation definitely sucks for this person. So, and when a pet dies, there's like obviously there's a lot of loss and grief that needs to be processed here, right? And so this being the primary motivator for boundary means that there's something to like there's more grief to be expressed, and there's more like things underneath. When the boundary has been crossed, there's a lot of like healing to do here. So coming from the hypnotist angle, I would basically like get into a deep trance, whether it by induction and like relaxation, and then just go back to this time and give them more resources, and try to dissociate from that like inner space. Dissociation in the term of like NLP, you basically make the painful memories a little bit like less, like gain a little bit of distance from them, so that it doesn't like the memories can still retain, but it's just not gonna be in vivid technicolor like 4K vision, you know what I mean? So that's what I would do from the hypnotist and slash NLP kind of unconscious mind angle. And now, what's another angle we can look at it? This is a good example. This is a good use case for the model from the life coach school, which divides everything into circumstance, thought, feelings, actions, and result. Right. So what are the circumstances? This person went to a Facebook group and made a post, and now the circumstance is the female guest saw this and gave them an email, and then communications happened. Now, like, and the original poster read the email and basically had the idea of like, oh, there is going to be a meetup, and there will be like a hosting session. And now, what are the thoughts that are responsible for this, right? So let's try and find it. Number one, she was very upset. This is like observation, right? It's not objectively the truth. She could be, like, I'm not saying other people are lying, but you can only know about yourself. So these types of sentences we're not concerned about. So I texted her when I landed, reiterated her. So why we get a feeling part here, right? Like why? So feelings come after thoughts. So the feeling here is like extremely terrible for putting her in that situation. So this is a twofer, right? The thought is, I put her in that situation. And the feeling is extremely terrible. And another thought that we can explore here is that I felt I had to uphold my boundary. So like I have to uphold my boundary is again another thought. But when we traditionally coach from the model's perspective, we work on one thought at a time. So we would have the circumstance of like Facebook group and like appointments and plane tickets and whatever. And then the thought that we're gonna be working with is like I put her in that situation and I feel extremely terrible. And now what are the actions that come because of that? You know, like the actions are what happens as the aftermath of things, and there's not a lot of details about what actions come out as a result of this, but basically, like when you feel like terrible, you would do things that correspond to that feeling of terribleness, right? And moreover, the ordinary actions that you would do if you are feeling good, you would not do because you are feeling horrible. So as a result, like when you feel terrible, because you think you put her in that situation, actually, like you're kind of the result is like actually you're blaming her for putting you in this situation because she is a free-willed human being. She can do whatever she wants. You can do whatever you want. And it's just when we're just talking about the circumstances, there is nothing that says objectively, like universally, cause and effect wise, that the original poster put her in that situation. Now, this is where I think the model gets a lot of flack because when this is communicated in like especially the result and the thoughts, when it's not communicated with a lot of care and like the approaching it from a truly neutral angle, it does sound a bit like you're the problem, man, and just think differently. So when you're coaching with the model, you have to really kind of, I think, as a coach, be conscious about is does the client understand that everything is neutral here? Does the client understand that they don't have like controlling powers over other people? Does the client understand that like whatever we think has the tendency to propagate into feelings and therefore our actions and therefore our that create the results? So the model is a lot about education and kind of like changing the thoughts like okay, what if you didn't think that you put her in that situation? What if it was her free will and you weren't responsible for anything? Then there would be a feeling that's different from feeling extremely terrible, and the result actions will be different, therefore the actions results will be different, right? So just like that, kind of like exchanging different thoughts and seeing where those go. So model based kind of coaching conversations, especially at first, involve a lot of different education, so just so that it doesn't sound like just think differently, man. You're just in your head. But anyway, that is how this would be approached from a model perspective. And now the next one is the meta pattern. Meta pattern is kind of like an in between of like cognitive work and coaching work. And if you look at here, the cognitive and unconscious work. So the meta pattern, instead of thinking of the thoughts, we deal with the feeling, right? Because something is associating, I'm going to pick boundaries for this one. Something about underneath the unconscious is associating boundary with uncomfortableness, right? And meta pattern seeks to remove yourself from the feeling of some trigger is causing you to feel uneasy and bad and uncomfortable. So we remove that uncomfortableness from the equation. So therefore, making the trigger lose one of the association to the undesired state. And then we put this trigger with the new state that's a desired state. So basically, we're kind of reprogramming what the trigger is and how we feel as a result, right? So, for example, this person feels uncomfortable. Okay, when was the last time you felt uncomfortable? Well, I felt uncomfortable because I had to put out my boundary, but at the same time, like I need to enforce it. So, like, can I be kind? I want to protect myself and respect, but at the same time, I put her in a terrible situation. Blah blah blah. Okay, so as a coach, I need to decipher this and simplify it. Okay, so what specifically triggers the uncomfortable feeling? Is it the your need to protect part? Or is it the I have placed her in a terrible situation part? Hypothetically, let's suppose that I place her in a terrible situation that's causing you to feel bad. Okay, good. And now, we activate that neural pattern first, right? We really get into that. Ah, oh, fuck! I put her in a terrible situation. I caused this. I'm responsible for this. And now, when that feeling bad is like localized within the body, I have them identify where in the body it sits, and then when they can locate it, okay, good. Now we do the dissociation techniques. You can find them in my YouTube channel. There's like bilateral stimulation, and there's like the squeezy squeezy, rapid EFT, whatever you use, you dissociate out of that state. And now we think about how do we want to feel about this? Okay, so your actions caused someone to have something. Right now, that makes you feel horrible. But if you had a choice, if you were a god, and if you had a choice in anything, and if you could feel anything about anything, what would you like to feel instead? Well, suppose the client said, well, I mean, I did uphold my boundary, and that's good, but I really want to feel kind because I don't want to be an unkind person. So I want to feel kind. Okay, then now what does kindness feel like? So just like how we identified that really uncomfortable and bad feeling in the body, we embody into the kindness. Ah, when I'm kind, I feel like this warmth in my chest. And when I'm feeling kind, there's like this feeling of connection that I feel. Um, like I'm almost like connected with their body and spirit. Okay, now while holding on to that feeling, we reintroduce the trigger of that your boundary causes someone to react a certain way. But now it feels really weird because now your brain is like, no, 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 these two feelings aren't supposed to go together, right? Like this trigger and this feeling isn't supposed to go together. So it's a really funky feeling at first, so there's a lot of resistance. But what I keep have to reiterating that, yeah, I get it. I get it's weird. But I just want you to hold both feelings. Like hold the trigger in one hand and hold the feeling in one hand. And see where your brain takes you. Because now, just as you hold on to it, your brain is going to create new neural connections. And you're going to really, like magically, think of justifications of why you would feel this way with the same trigger, right? So that is kind of the magic of the meta pattern. Like especially when you get into it and you understand the process of like really holding the original trigger and the desired feeling together. It's so weird at first. But the more you do it, the more it becomes like, oh, I can feel whatever I want, right? And at first it's like a process of like dissociating and associating and then putting the resource and the trigger together. But the more you do it, the more you just keep asking yourself, okay, feel pretty bad right now. How do I want to feel instead? And this is an exercise in using the executive decision making part of your brain, and it rewires the neural pathways between the triggers and the emotional states that you're in. So that's the meta pattern. And let's talk about unshaming. So unshaming, what does unshaming do? So feeling terrible, right? We normally want to avoid feeling terrible because it's a bad feeling. We normally have a tendency to try and avoid bad feelings because we're kind of indoctrinated to believe that we only need to think about good things. So the way that unshaming works is that no, when you feel bad, the badness isn't just this feeling that comes out of a vacuum. You don't feel bad for no reason. You don't feel bad for a stupid reason. You're not stupid for feeling bad. You're not really this bad person for feeling bad. You're not this like basically you always have your best interest in heart and you're always intelligently working whether you're aware of it or not. So let's utilize and connect to that intelligence. why do we feel bad? Why do we feel extremely terrible? So, from the unshaming angle, again, we would identify where that like extremely terrible feeling lives, and qualitatively we would describe it. Okay, like is it like a burning sensation, or like is it cold? Is it like a squeeze or a constriction, or is it more like a like expansion that's so uncomfortable, like your chest is gonna explode? We identify that in the body, and now we raise the stakes a little bit. Now, suppose she gets even angrier, and suppose your housemates blame you even harder, right? And suppose you have even more guilt, and it feels even more terrible. Now, as we amplify that feeling, we follow the feeling. How does the feeling intensify? Does it neutralize? Does it get stronger? Does the burning sensation become hotter and hotter until you can't like bear it anymore? Is it so so constrictive that you feel like your heart is just gonna stop? And then we just follow that feeling to its natural resolution because your feelings always want to take you to a destination. And when we get to that destination, there's usually a sensation of peace. There's usually a sensation of like, ah, oh, this is why. Or you get recalls to a previous incident in your life that you didn't resolve and you didn't digest yet and you haven't healed from yet. And then as the facilitator for unshaming, I witness all of that and validate your intelligence and thank it for presenting the feeling bad for you because it's the pathway that you took to get to this deeper appreciation and connection with yourself. And that's how the unshaming process would take a look at this. And now, how would Buddhist philosophy look at this? Well, Buddhist philosophy would say, well, there is no objective measure of like good behavior and bad behavior. And whatever you do just has a side effect and consequence out of it, right? So can you be like there's no external force that's making you feel bad. It's all inside of these ideas that live inside of your brain, and those urges and those thoughts are making you think that it's controlling you, right? So what are those like fleeting thoughts that are living inside of your head that you take as true? Well, like why do we have to catch a plane? I know like Buddhist philosophy can be very esoteric and extreme, but the plane is like there's no rule that says you have to catch a plane. It's just that you want to, right? And then so you waited. Why? Because you want to be considerate, right? But at the same time, you need to leave. Well, you want to leave because you think you have to catch the flight. So it's this is just a if you really think about it from a distance and really observe it from the factual angle, it's just two desires conflicting at once. I want to leave and I want to fulfill my desires, but at the same time, I want to be hospital. I want to be hospitable, and they conflict. And moreover, I don't just want to be hospitable. I want to be hospitable with my conditions intact on it. So now this person is complaining about my conditions, and it's getting in the way of me feeling hospitable. So underneath it, like that's why you're suffering. And this is using the four kind of fundamental. I forget this exact term, but um, it's called 사성제. Let me briefly Google it up. Okay, it's four noble truths. So four noble truths basically identify that you are suffering. Why do you suffer? And get rid of the reason and continue sustaining ridding of that reason. So it's a kind of an extreme example and a grossly oversimplified version of it, but that's kind of the point of this video. I'm just trying to give you like a menagerie of coaching options for this one scenario. That took a lot more time than I expected, but that is basically the tools that I have in my toolbox. And some of them will land better for you, some of them will not land for you, and that's okay. That's why I have lots of tools. If one tool worked really well, then I wouldn't have a collection of these tools, right? And so, if you have your own problem that you want me to analyze, please feel free to leave it in the comments. But again, this is an experimental kind of a video, so let me know if this video was to your liking or not. All right, I'll see you in the next video.